Right, we're on. Rod Snodgrass, welcome to the Luke Farr Show to motivate, educate and inspire our next generation of leaders. Thank you, kind sir, for coming on.
Pleasure.
Great to have you here. And I guess just to give some context to the audience, you're a professional director and a management consultant, and yes, I am reading off LinkedIn, advising on business transformation, growth and digital strategy. You run a strategy and business transformation agency called the Exponential Agency. The audience can check out the exponential.agency for more info there. You also enjoyed a long career with Telecom NZ /Spark, during which you were Chief Strategy Officer, Chief Product Officer, and CEO of Spark Ventures. You have a broad range of governance experience, including directorships with Geo, MetLife Care, and Williams Vaughan. And you're also a New Zealand and Australian Chartered Accountant and member of the New Zealand Institute of Directors. Just a few accolades there. And if I could kindly get my breath and give the floor over to you. But I mean, what lights your fire, Rod, about strategy and business transformation, essentially?
Oh, look, it's interesting, mate, because I more recently we just set up another business called Maker Partners, which is we're more focused on the growth sector, and we've got a venture capital fund in there, really around supporting purpose-driven Kiwi startups. But on the strategy side, I guess I had, as you said, a long career, but basically between Fletcher's and Spark, really over 30 years in a range of roles, and ended up, I started out actually with a bachelor's in finance and commercial law, and then I went down that accounting path, which was pretty dull, and slowly moved into more general stuff and found out what I really liked was, I guess you call it market and product strategy, really building new businesses, whether they're products and services, and the likes of Skinny and Lightbox, and I ran Extra when I was a younger chap back in the day, back when the internet was starting.
So you actually, you were the spearhead of Skinny.
Yeah, that came out of Ventures. So, but I've just found that I really enjoyed sort of growth and building things rather than, I guess, cutting costs and laying people off, which I did earlier in my career back in the Fletcher days. And through all of that, I spent a long time running strategy for Spark and just enjoyed thinking more about the business models and the shape of business and how you can create growth and value. So I have a much more of a desire or an appetite to grow the top line and build new businesses and products and services than, to take costs out and manage capital. Everyone does different things. I do believe in the whole, the saying, grow or die. You're either a business who's growing or you're dying. So that's sort of where that all came from. And so that's been, I guess, behind my recent shift more into venture capital and working more and more in the startup system, trying to help, young Kiwi entrepreneurs grow great businesses and create value and create jobs, and it's much more rewarding than, this will probably piss some people off, but sitting in a traditional corporate, slowly walking backwards, working for what are essentially zombie companies.
No. Yes, that will piss a lot of people off, because a lot of people watching are probably sitting there at their desk right now with headphones on. But no, very, very valid point. And when you reference there, you're either growing or dying. I mean, there were roughly 28,000 New Zealand businesses, as you're probably aware, that were wiped off the register during the pandemic. I mean, apart from the pandemic itself, what else may have caused that, in your opinion?
Look, if the cold hard reality is, if you even look at the S&P 500 in the US, over 50% of the companies on that have disappeared in the last 10 years. You've got a fundamental shift going on now, which has really happened in the 21st century, where there's just a huge number of what you can call accelerating or exponential technologies that are turning up en masse. Over 20 of them they've listed so far. This is the likes of hyperconnectivity, AI, nanotech, all of these things that have come together in a combinatory sort of way that's creating just exponential shifts. And that's causing massive business model shifts. And, technology used to be, in many ways, one of the constraining factors for how you drive a business. But now technology isn't the problem. It's more mindset and what business model you're going to change. And you've got businesses coming along like the likes of Uber, where they get to, who knows, but that business has fundamentally changed the way you catch a car or you share a ride. So that's what's going on, and what, in the past, business models were based on this concept of scarcity of assets, which you still have in monopolies because they have control of the asset. But what what you're talking about now is people accessing abundance, whether that's Airbnb using capacity in rooms or using capacity in cars and people's time. So you've got these massive shifts going on, and when you get a whole bunch of technologies being combined to create a new business model, that's where the winner takes all, and the traditional guys get disrupted. And I think you'll see more and more traditional businesses coming under severe pressure. I mean, I saw a lot of it back in my telecom spark days. It started in the early 2000s when you had we started with the internet over the copper line, and then it was over fiber, and then it went 3G, 4G, 5G, and 6 will be next. And I don't think many people have understood that if Spark hadn't invested in internet and mobile, it wouldn't exist today, because everything that was telecom when I joined it in the late 90s is now in chorus. Spark wouldn't exist. That business has been built over a 15-year period. And what happened in that industry is you had technology, media and IT come together, and the shifts have been enormous. What's happened to Sky and traditional media, and the good old Yellow Pages that we sold in 2006, for 2.
Oh, shout out to Yellow Pages, mate. It's been a good 2 years there in the digital team. Yeah. Oh, so you were part of that acquisition?
No, I was just part of the sale. I was the strategy guy that said sell it.
Right.
And it's probably worth maybe a 60th of what we sold it for. And that shift happened pretty quick. And what was happening there was the fundamental shift from offline print to online in the SME market. When people who are now probably 40 were coming through, and they were more digital natives, and they shifted simply from a print directory to Google search. So
they initially were owned by the Canadian Pensioner Fund, were they? And that's why I think Scott Pomeroy came out to spearhead it.
No, they're owned by Telecom.
Oh, okay. Oh, they were initially, okay, right.
And then we sold them to the pension fund. So,
I see, right.
Yeah. So you've just got serious shifts coming on. There's some really interesting stuff happening. I think the big shifts we'll be seeing are more in industries such as banking. With distributed finance will get quite interesting, more power to the consumer, and open banking. Energy is going to get really interesting when you've got the collision of when the autonomous electric car turns up en masse. You've actually got telecommunications, energy, and transport colliding. And when you have a 3-industry collision, generally you have massive change. So, you can envisage a future where there's no personal car ownership anymore, because once it's electric and autonomous and it doesn't have a steering wheel, I can't really see a reason to own one. So I don't know who will own the fleets. Potentially the city makes the most sense, and you'll pay by kilometre. And these cars.
Yeah. You mentioned, sorry to interrupt there, Rod, you mentioned banking there just quickly. I mean, do you see the banks being quite threatened and disrupted by what's happening with crypto and blockchain, or?
Look, everyone gets excited about the technologies. It's what the technologies enable in terms of business models. The banks at the moment have got quite a degree of control over the system, but when the likes of open banking emerges and the new models come, you will see change. And generally over time, when you've got disruptive technologies, you've got regulatory intervention and changing consumer behaviours, the value shifts away from the incumbents towards the consumer and generally the attackers. And it'll be a bit like communications. We used to make all of our money 20 years ago over fixed line calling, would you believe? And now, I don't know what Spark makes now, but it'll be less than 5% of their income would come from that.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. So, people forget. When I joined Extra, the internet was running at 28 kilobits a second.
And then when in my era, it went up there, we're probably, 10, 15 years apart, but it went up to 52 kbps. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was $95 an hour, and for $50 a month now, you can get, up to 1 megabit mobile. So most people don't understand that's over 40,000 times improvement in 15 years. So, apply that to energy, your energy bill would be like a cent a month if they, so that's when the change comes, it comes fast, and you get those curves. So, can I see energy changing dramatically in the next 5 years? Possibly not, but the next 10 years, definitely. Same goes for banking,
Right. For the people out there that don't understand fibre optic, Rod, like what is it? Just in layman's terms, when they throw around the term fibre optic cabling.
Basically glass, and they're shooting light beams down it. Yeah.
That's a grader. Yeah, okay. Yeah, right.
And they use essentially a bunch of mirrors to bounce it around the place. So, yeah, it's just traveling over glass, essentially.
Gotcha. Very good. I do want to track back to your Vic Uni days. That would have been exciting for you many moons ago. But I mean, is there anything that uni taught you back then that you actually still use to this very day, Rod?
No, I actually went to uni.
I love it. I love it. Well, all of university's applicants for next year have just dropped dramatically after that statement.
I would like to talk about that. I actually went 4 unis to get 1 degree because I had a bit of a concentration issue. But look, I absolutely think there's a place for universities, particularly for certain career areas where you just have to learn stuff, medicine, civil engineering, those sorts of disciplines. But if I had my time again, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't go to uni. I'd come out and start a business. And a lot more micro learning and learning on the job. You can do these short courses. You can do the likes of Dev Academy, where one of my kids went. 16-week high intensity course to come out sort of year 2, year 3 university software engineering, do it in 16 weeks. I think there's a lot more learning pathways these days, and the 3-year degree is definitely not an answer to most things. We don't need any more accountants or lawyers. That stuff's all been digitized, through the Xeros and that of the world. So, we need much more STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths coming out. We need, I think, shifts into different areas around, problem solving, user design, how to work in a collaborative team. The whole, what you need for the workforce in the future is fundamentally different to what we did in the last century, because you have to remember universities were designed around an educational system that's over 200, 300 years old, around the industrial age, and we're not in that anymore.
Do you think schools are adapting fast enough as far as how they're offering the curriculum? They're not, are they?
No, absolutely not.
And why not? Is it because they just don't have the resources or know-how, or are they just scared? Or
well, it's the way the policy settings are done by our friends in Wellington.
Our friends in Wellington. Very good. Hey, I want to chat about your childhood briefly, if you don't mind. I mean, were you always coming up with strategy? I mean, for the best home-baked cookies, or strategizing how to get someone else to put the trash out?
I am the oldest of 4, so I'm the atypical oldest child male of 4 siblings. I did try and normally get all my siblings Christmas presents off them, through bargaining and trading. Absolutely. And I was always in trouble at school. So
nice. Yeah, very good. So it was sort of you had that characteristic sort of born into that strategy mind, so to speak.
Probably. Well, my father ran the port down in New Plymouth. My mum was a nurse who started her own daycare centre, so I guess probably saw the entrepreneurial side from my mother, to be honest. From a very young age, she didn't like the daycare my youngest brother was getting when I was probably about 8 or 9, and he was 2. So they built their own daycare centre in our garage and started from there. So I got to see, 2 hardworking parents, and particularly on my mum's side, somebody just started a business from scratch, and she was a nurse by training. But it's just, quite like deals and stuff.
Yeah, nice, very good. And let's do this chat. I want to chat about the youth embarking on their corporate career and aiming to climb the ladder to CEO. Which you've been like. What skills and traits are essential for them to navigate their way to the top as effectively as possible?
I have this is an interesting one. I have quite a different view on it now than I did when I was coming up, through the ranks. And I guess, I was pretty lucky in my career because, probably managed. Like, I always chased jobs that other people might have thought were quite risky. Like when I did the Spark Ventures job, I was employee number 1. I had to set that up and build that, and if I didn't get it right, I was gone burger. But I think a few things to think about for young people these days is, the first thing is to think about what industries are on values will give you energy. You really want to wake up. You spend half your life at work, so you should enjoy it. So you need to think about what industries really fire up and you can get excited about and are on values for you. And that's a critical thing, is to work out what your personal values are. I didn't really work them out till I was in my 40s, which was way too late. But once you work them out, they give you a bit of a North Star. The next thing is
I do have hope. Yeah, 5 years off 40, mate, and it's starting to tick in your head going, sheesh, you're getting on now, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can send you stuff on it, Luke, if you want, how to find out what they are.
That'd be great.
And then it's your boss. So I was incredibly lucky. I worked for people like Simon Mutter and, you know, Mark Ratcliffe, who ran Chorus, and Marco Bogovisky, who ended up running Morrison and Cohen Infratil, just really, really good, smart people. I think you really need to have bosses who you trust, respect, and can learn from. They don't need to be your mates, never confuse that, but you always want to be able to learn from your bosses. Then the next thing is the scope of your role. Always ensure that it's you've got a license to operate in areas that you find rewarding, and sort of money comes last. But you know, the thing I'd say to a lot of young people is get clear on your why. Focus on working with people who give you energy. You know, that's pretty critical. You know, because you get a lot of power from that. And always ask yourself questions about, you know, why am I here? What excites me? You know,
just playing a small devil's advocate, but like, I mean, bills need to be paid and food needs to be on the table. Like, it is challenging, really, to sort of look at that. Hey, look, where's my dream role versus, sheesh, I've got a mortgage, I've got kids, and I need to be in this job because it's a paycheck, not necessarily because I love it. So,
yeah.
And I mean, you've got to just think smarter about that, right? Right. Put a nest egg away so then you can then spend some time looking and seeking out what you love. But any strategies from your perspective around that, how to pivot and navigate that playing field?
I think one of the best things I've ever seen on that is it's a Japanese philosophy called ikigai, where there's sort of
I heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, sort of what's good for the world, what am I good at, what will I get paid for, what do I enjoy, and you work out where you sit in those quadrants. You know, because the reality is you can get paid a lot of money working in a corporate, but you may not necessarily enjoy it. So the truth is I earn a fifth of what I used to, but I enjoy life a whole lot more. So you're right, you've got to balance, and clearly people have to pay bills and put their kids through schools and all that jazz, but it's getting the balance right. And maybe you take one job to earn money, but then start supplementing around the edges of that, things you really enjoy. Might even be give back work, or starting to work with startups or with charities, whatever that is. I think that the critical thing is just to focus, you know, get really tight on your values and who you're working with and what you're doing. The other thing I would say is there are skills, you know, the OECD and the likes of and the World Economic Forum, we've laid out what the most important skills are for this time versus what they used to be, and it's much more around creativity, the ability to problem solve, you know, sort of design thinking, working in teams. Very different than what it was when I came up. You know, where systems were much more hierarchical, command and control. So those things have changed quite dramatically. So I think just simple problem solving, you know, which is a science, not an art. It's quite a critical one for people to actually be able to, you know, structure up issues and solve them. Because at the end of the day, that's what strategy is. It's just problem solving.
Is problem solving, do you think, I mean, is that effectively, it's a unique skill set you've been born with, or can some develop it? I mean, technically, when I've done my sort of, you know, charts and I look at my strengths and weaknesses, like, I'm not the best problem solver, but I'm a good salesman.
Yeah,
and then I find my people that are good problem solvers, and, you know, I can connect the dots. But
yeah,
I can't do a Rubik's cube, you know. Like.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was a boarding school thing. I was able to crack too much. No, I think some people are naturally better at problem solving, but it is something you can learn. It's something you can learn. You know, I was lucky enough to work with McKinsey & Co for 20 odd years. So, and you learn a lot of just tool sets, you know, writing a problem statement and doing an issues tree, and then sort of building a program of work around how to solve it in the right order and to knock off, as they say, the branches that aren't material. But it's, some people are naturally better at problem solving than others, but people can learn it. It's certainly something you can learn.
Yeah, nice. And speaking of, I just want to touch on, Rod, your current projects that you're currently working on, which, I mean, they're all different, but they do have one thing in common, which is a need for decisive, informed, and often urgent action in the face of disruptive threats. What are the most common disruptive threats that you're seeing?
I think that well, there's threats all over the place, and just remember that the flip side of every threat is an opportunity. It's how you go about it. Look, I think the biggest risk for a lot of businesses is not understanding the rate of change that's happening in the external environment and being caught by it. And I do worry that a lot of our large businesses in New Zealand are simply either unconsciously incompetent or consciously incompetent. They are just focused on and wringing out profits and returning dividends whilst Rome burns. And that's concerning, because there's a lot of jobs tied up in a lot of those businesses. And if you look at what's happened in the US, as I said, 50% of the S&P 500's disappeared. If you applied that to the New Zealand share market, that's a worrying stat. And we don't have a lot of what you would call software-centric businesses in our top 10 companies. We're very exposed to large utility businesses, quasi-monopolies, and ex-government entities that were sold off in the 80s. And you're not going to get growth from a lot of those businesses. So it worries me where are the jobs of the future coming from for the young people. And we should be, you'll hear people harp on it, we should really be building out our tech sector and software and getting heavier into ag tech and green tech and marine tech, things that this country should be good at. But we're still relying on the past somewhat, the number 8 wire thing that was probably relevant 100 years ago, but it's completely
farming and tourism.
Yeah, it's absolutely tourism, but it needs to step up a few. I used to sit on the board of GC, and we certainly felt it during the lockdowns there, what it did to that business. But farming is still critical, but we need to keep introducing more technology to it and moving it forward. Same with tourism. We need a vibrant tech sector, because one thing Kiwis are good at, and you just see it whenever you go overseas, is are generally very creative people, and good horizontal problem solvers, great generalists, but you sort of can't rest on your laurels. We need to get on with it. And as you touched on earlier, that needs to start at the start of the education system, at 5-year-olds or even earlier, in the same way the countries like Israel are doing it. Very, very tech-centric nation, very collaborative, well structured how the whole system works. That's what we need here.
Well, yeah, you wrote something in your presentation which I just want to articulate, which I really love. So technology is being digitized, driving deceptive exponential growth, causing continued disruption, which then dematerializes technology, causing the related product to demonetize, and also allowing democratization. There's a few D's going on in there, but it is quite poetic. I mean, we can move so fast with technology, right? Are we simply moving too fast, therefore becoming irrelevant to the actual current state of play, do you think? Or
no, and look, that thing you just read out there, that actually comes from a book called The Exponential Organization, which is a great book. I'd encourage anyone to read it, just on just the rate of change and what's happening in business, and it gets into which businesses are winning and why. It is a science, it's not an art. And an example of that one, a really simple example, is you think about maps and getting directions. Back when I was, in my 30s, you had the old Wise's map in the back seat of the car. The disruption happened there with, TomTom and Navman, the New Zealand company Navman, which was a hardware-based solution, but, had a software layer. That then got, that software got digitized into Google Maps and dropped into your smartphone. So goodbye Navman and that, and then got completely democratized and given away for free, because Google are just trying to get search data to sell for advertising purposes. So they just nuked the whole market. Same happened with encyclopedias, has happened with hard format video and music, and the list goes on. Interesting thing there is whenever a market gets disruptive, it creates another market in an adjacency. So you think about photos today. The constraining factor there used to be paper, so it cost you sort of $1 a photo to get it produced. So you were very careful about what photos you took in the old days with your camera, whereas these days with your phone, you just snap them away ad nauseum. You've got millions of the things on your phone. The real problem now is storage and finding them. So it's shifted from, the cost of production of a photo now to the cost of storage and finding them. So that's created a whole new market for the likes of, iCloud and Google Cloud and stuff. So, good old Kodak are gone, but the value is still there. It just sits in a different place.
Yeah.
In terms of your question about, is technology moving too fast? I think the scary thing is, if you believe the experts on this, they think we've seen 1% of the disruption.
Right.
So it's, it's so if you think it's feeling like it's moving fast now, it's going to get a lot faster.
Wow. Okay, good to know. Yeah, that's up. I mean, no, I'm just thinking like we're already at the speed of light, right? Like I mean, how can it get even faster than the speed it's going right now with?
It just, well, I mean, you just think about what's happened in the last 20 years. Who would have envisaged? I remember telling people back in 1999, you'll be able to talk to people over your mobile phone anywhere in the world for free one day, and I got laughed at. And hello, now you can. You jump on.
That's true. I'm thinking more on the social media side. Look how sort of slow it went from MySpace, where you sort of customize your profile with a song, to then Facebook, to Instagram, to TikTok. Now it's like, I mean, okay, to be fair, from Facebook to TikTok and Instagram, that space was moving pretty quickly. But I'm just thinking, where are they going next? I mean, the VR stuff that's happening too, with the virtual reality side of things with social, but I can't even fathom what platform will come out to try and compete. Like, they own the monopoly, Google and Facebook. Like,
yeah, look, look, I don't know. I'm not big on social anymore, so I'm probably not the guy to ask. I found it a complete waste of time, most of it. I use messaging platforms definitely, because they have a functional outcome when you're talking to people, but the continuous scroll is that's a drug. I mean, I think we'll look back on social media like we look back on smoking now. It's a bad thing. There's good things that it does, connecting people and that, but a lot of it is about the likes of Facebook stealing your time so they can monetize it to create an advertising proposition. They basically, you are the product. If you've watched The Social Dilemma.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
The living for likes, what it's done to Gen Y, and that it's hoovering up huge amounts of their time. Personally, I'd rather ride my road bike.
Yeah, I agree, and it is sickening when you look at the stats. Depression, anxiety is through the roof, and suicide rates in teenagers. Yeah, no, it's not healthy, and there needs to be tools and resources around how to effectively use social media, because there is some great that comes out of it. I.e., reaching out to you on LinkedIn. I've never met you, and then now we're creating some form of education for the youth out there, and that's all through social. So that's a positive example. I want to switch into sales a little bit. I mean, people, as you know, people buy people they like, trust, and understand. Rod, how do you be liked, trusted, and understood?
Oh, good. I'm not really good at sales, to be honest, Luke. That's one of my weaknesses.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think you just got to be honest with people and try and be a good human. Put in more than you take out these days. I always try and help people. Never say no. Wears you down a bit, but I'll always take a meeting.
Yeah, nice. And you would have come across a few salespeople in your time. Like, if you were to recall, I mean, the top three, like, what made them so good, do you think, and stand out from the rest? Were they better listeners? Were they smooth articulators? What was it, do you think?
I think with a lot of good salespeople, they believe in what they're selling. They're very core, and that what they're selling is going to make a difference to the business they're selling it to. They're definitely good at listening and understanding what their target customers' problems are and what needs solving, and describing that. What problem are they trying to solve, and how the product that they're selling, meets that need. Generally, I mean, obviously, I saw tons of salespeople at Spark. We had, over 1,000 of them across all the different segments we operated in. So you do get to see we used to call them super achievers, the people who were really good at selling and good at business development, client management. One of the top ones is now running Microsoft in New Zealand, Vanessa Sorensen. So
Wow.
Yeah. So Chris Quinn, who now runs Foodstuffs, he was pretty good too. So there's a bunch. The Centrate, Mark O'Donnell, who's now running Rocket Apples.
Oh yeah, out of Hawke's Bay, nice.
Yeah, so Mod he ran the corporate sales group back in the day when I was, I think, running the fixed line. They're a different breed. I was never you got to know what you're good at and what you're not.
Yeah, hone into your strengths for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, I do a track back. So if you were to sort of do it all over again from your 20s, what would you do differently?
I wouldn't have gone to uni, at least not straight out of school. Probably would have. To be honest, I probably would have just gone riding around the world on a bike, doing odd jobs. If I'd come up with an idea, I would have started a business. I would have definitely kept learning though. You know, whether it's micro courses or going to uni or doing an MBA later in life, I just think and this is just a personal thought. You know, I didn't really know what I want to do when I started law actually at Auckland, and then didn't really like that, and then ended up doing finance and commercial law. I mean, if everyone got paid the same, I would have done classical history. But
oh yeah,
yeah. So that's my thing, Greek, Rome, and stuff. So.
Oh, very good. And I do want to do a question around cycling. You know, why do you think some gravitate towards more of a passion towards cycling as opposed to running, and running over cycling?
Oh, well, wow, weirdly, I had a stint a few years back. So I did a lot of running after that because I always wanted to run a marathon. And I quite like running, but as you get older, I'm in my mid-50s, it hurts more than cycling, other than when you crash. I mean,
Sorry, did you say stint? Oh, like a stint? And,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like a bionic man thing.
Right.
Yeah, so look, I think one thing about cycling is it can be quite social, you know, so you can do it in groups. It's very data driven. I like you know, the data side of it, you know, what watts you're pushing and your FTP and all of that stuff. But it's also quite a social sport, and you get to see lots of cool things. I do road riding, and mainly road and gravel. So you know, I rode the length of New Zealand in 2019. You just get to see amazing stuff.
Holy, wow, what a phenomenal effort. Well done.
Oh, it took 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it did. How many kilometers is that from Cape Reinga to
Bluff?
Invercargill?
Yeah, to Bluff. Yeah, I think it was something like 3,200.
Wow.
Well, if you can sit on a seat in an office for 8 hours, you can sit on a bike seat. You know, it's all in your head.
I'm going to have to debate that. I mean, sitting on an office is far less strenuous, isn't it? Oh, well, it depends how you look at it. But
yeah, no,
you're not exerting any physical energy sitting on your office. You might be exerting mental stress, either because the task at hand's hard or you hate what you're doing. That's a depressive state. But
I don't know. If you ask me to pick sitting in a board meeting versus riding down 90 Mile Beach, I'll take 90 Mile Beach every time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Oh, there's no argument there. No, I love that. Absolutely. Hey, Rod Snodgrass, that's all we've got time for today, but I do want to thank you so much for coming on the Luke Farr Show to motivate, educate, and inspire our next generation of leaders. You've offered some invaluable insights, and I really do want to say thank you for coming on.
Pleasure, mate.
Thank you very much. And yeah, lovely shout out to our Hawke's Bay sponsors, Autophagy Skincare. You can check them out, autophagyskincare.com, and Julie Smith Real Estate. Couldn't do it without them, so thank you guys. But yeah, thanks, Rod. Thanks for coming on. I'll just hit stop record quickly, and I'll give you a bit of a debrief.